Hey guys, it's Ley. I have really wanted to try gouache for a while. I love that velvety matte finish and how well it works with watercolor, which is my favorite medium, in case you're new here. And I know what you're thinking, Holbein's Acryla Gouache is not really gouache, it's acrylic. And you're right, people also usually recommend trying traditional gouache before moving on to any of the acrylic gouaches, but I'm a rebel. I also really like the idea of it being permanent when dry. I like working with very staining watercolors that don't budge after you've laid them down, so you can do lots of layers over top. I feel like acrylic gouache works better for that style of painting, but I guess we'll have to see how that goes. These swatches are slightly different from my usual watercolor swatches. The top bar is meant to show the gouache painted at full strength without any water added. I later layered another coat of paint over half of that bar. The bottom triangle shows the gouache with water added and then blended out with more water. This first color is probably kind of boring to watch. This is titanium white, created from the pigment PW6 or titanium dioxide. I chose this particular white because it's so neutral, and it's usually quite opaque. It's probably hard to tell what this paint is actually like, however, so let's move on to the next color. So Holbein doesn't list pigments on their site, though I did find a site after I purchased these colors that has the pigment information available. They are on the tubes themselves if you're lucky enough to ever see these in a real life store. I live in Backwoods, Nova Scotia, so it's really hard for me to find these. If I had done my research, I probably would have chosen a different black. Jet black is created from the pigment PBK1 or aniline black, which is not a terribly light fast pigment. Holbein rates it as a 2* rating or permanent, but I have some concerns. I mean, all the tubes do say they conform to ASTM standards, so I don't know. In all likelihood, I probably won't bother picking up another black since this one works fine and I could always mix a different one. I mean, I do love how black gouache looks so velvety and deep, like you could just fall into it forever. Okay, so on to the actual colors. I chose a CMY triad, which is one of the better triads to go with because you do get a wider range of colors. Primary magenta is created from the pigment PR122, which is often used to make quinacridone magenta. In watercolor, that is, not, I guess also in gouache. You know what I'm saying. This paint has the 3* or absolutely permanent rating. It is a rich, deep, kind of like a red violet. I mean, it's magenta. And it blended out really nicely, and it was reasonably opaque after 2 coats. Primary yellow is created from the pigments PY3, which is Hansa or Aerolide Yellow 10G, and PY74, which is Aerolide Yellow 5GX. They aren't great pigments for light fastness, and this paint only has a 2* rating, which does mean it's permanent, but I don't know what that means. Like, for how many years is it permanent? Holbein, why can't you tell us? As far as I can tell, none of the yellows from this line have higher than a 2* rating for light fastness. It is the least opaque of the colors, and it also laid down kind of streakily, but I mean, realistically, I don't use a lot of yellows in my art, so in all likelihood, I probably would only really use this in mixing, which would theoretically make it more opaque. Primary cyan is created from the pigment PB15 or phthalocyanine blue. This is a very light fast color. Holbein gives it the 3* rating, which is absolutely permanent. This is another really creamy and rich color similar to the primary magenta. I would even go so far as to say it's slightly more opaque. It also blended out like an absolute dream. The other colors blended out kind of streakier, but the cyan is far smoother, which you can probably tell in the dried swatch. After swatching all of these, I decided to try making a basic color wheel in my little watercolor journal. They blended really nicely into tertiary colors of the, the oranges and the greens and the purples. I realized that the wheel is not super pretty, but it was mostly just me kind of playing around with the colors. I mean, this whole page is just me playing around with the colors, but I still think it kind of works to give you an idea of how the different colors mix. I did play around with making a purple more similar to my favorite kind of purple, which is bluer, after that dried, which really does not take very long at all, which I think is the main issue with these, is that they dry so fast. I then laid down a sort of like a gradiated wash of the black over top, and it didn't budge. These paints are definitely permanent when dry. So that's it for my review of the Holbein Acryla Gouache paints. I mean, it's really more of a first impression, and I know it doesn't really give much information beyond how well they swatch and how they lay down, but I will be trying these in an actual painting, so please subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on that video, which could go horrifically wrong. I guess we'll see. I will definitely post like my very first ever painting with gouache though, just to see how it turns out. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!